Today's Leading Women, episode 615, with the wonderful Barbara Newman.
Women all over the world, get ready for inspiring and empowering interviews from women at the top of their field who are kicking butt in their business and who are prepared to share shocking revelations from being in the limelight. You are now listening to Today's Leading Women with Marie Grace Berg.
Thinking of starting a podcast? Seriously consider starting a podcast of your own, remembering that it will allow you to grow in ways you never imagined. It will grow your email list, your audience, your influence, and your bank account. Go to podcastprofitsystem.com to get started. That's www.podcastprofitsystem.com. Yes, women of the world, let's get started. I am delighted to introduce you our amazing guest for today, Barbara Newman Mannix. Barbara Newman Mannix is the founder at adignifiedlife.com, which helps you navigate the elder care, healthcare, insurance, legal, financial, and social services industries. Barbara created A Dignified Life to provide elder care consulting and professional assistance in contacting appropriate specialists and services required to satisfy today's changing needs. To learn more, visit www.adignifiedlife.com. Again, that link is www.adignifiedlife.com. Women of the World, Miss Barbara Newman Mannix. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Marie Grace. I'm so delighted to be here and have an opportunity to share some thoughts with you and also with your audience.
I am delighted as well, and I'm sure our listeners too. So, Barbara, I really love what you're doing with your business, especially with A Dignified Life. I love that name as well. You're welcome. You are a success in your own right. You put in the effort, the sweat equity, the knowledge and experience to build a special business you call your own. As a result of that, our listeners really want to get to know you, and I want to provide the conduit, that bridge between you and our listeners. So here are some cool questions that we can talk about. Feel free to comment anytime about them, but these are just general questions I have in mind.
Okay.
So let's start with your business. There might be people out there who want to start one and have no clue how to go about it. Can you tell us more about your business and the idea behind that niche?
Well, thank you. So my business was based on a personal experience. I lost my husband to a sudden illness in 2006. And we quickly saw within the first day of his diagnosis, actually at his diagnosis, that we had the best of the worst. And by that I mean that we actually had the resources that we would need to support us pretty much at our fingertips. And so what I will say to the listeners is that if you have an idea, I'm going to tell you my signature story. Signature stories are very important. Of course, they have to be authentic, but if people can relate to you and you have a consistency in your message, and as I said, it's authentic, I think that resonates with people. So the reality of my situation and why this business became so apparent to me is that when my husband was being diagnosed with terminal cancer, he was diagnosed terminal the day that he was diagnosed. The first thing that I thought of when the doctor was delivering this news to us was, oh my God, I wonder about the baseball tickets. And those baseball tickets were tickets, Yankees Red Sox tickets that we had given to our twins for their 9th birthday. We had given them those tickets for Christmas. Well, that was in December. This was March, and I was wondering if he was going to be alive in June. And the doctor was incredulous that was my first thought. He said, "Aren't you thinking about your insurance? Aren't you thinking about where, Jim's going to get his care? Aren't you thinking about any of these logistical things?" And I said, "No." Because I knew that there was one person that I could call as soon as I left that office, excuse me, who could get us into Sloan Kettering in one phone call. that's all I could think about was get him to the right place. And then the next thing that became apparent to me was we have to take care of our children. We have two 8-year-olds. Who's going to take care of them? But in the whole process of that 6-month illness, we never had to leave our immediate, I call it the board table, our coffee table, because we had resources within our family who could help us. I have a brother who's a doctor. My sister-in-law is a critical care nurse. My two brothers-in-law were in the finance business. My husband was an attorney, and I was a researcher. And so we could sit and we could brainstorm. So I urge people to understand what value they can provide, to be authentic. And if they don't have a boardroom sitting in their family room, then go out and find those people who can help you and support you and get the right information at the right time.
What a beautiful story! What an inspiring story that one is, especially in terms of that experience that you have from the personal illness that your husband got, and your being able to have those resources around you. You gathered all those advisors, like what you just stated, and that is a huge lesson for our listeners, especially who are just thinking of starting a business, to really understand what value you can provide. And if you have a story, because that's what people relate to, your own authentic story.
Yes.
And that's the theme here at today's New Women, because more often that idea came from a personal experience of ours, and being able to find that solution, and now you're extending that to other people, you're helping other people. It goes beyond just yourself, but to other people as well. So great that you shared that one with us. But what continues to inspire you doing this business?
What 3 traits did you say? I'm sorry.
What inspires you?
Oh, what inspired me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to have to go back to work, and I thought about what was it that we had, and what we had was a willingness to prevail, and we had a willingness to really put this positive spin and optimism on the fact that, by all means, we were going to lose him, but we wanted to establish a new normal. And it's been a catharsis for me to help other people establish new normals, because we all have stories in our lives, and we all have circumstances that we haven't been able to control. But if you can make a difference in someone's life, especially in elevating it, then you've really done something. And so what we do every day is we are a familial service. We're a service that helps people within their families, with their parents, with their loved ones, and we operate as a surrogate honorary family member. So we have no one-size-fits-all to the business, and that's what we found in the inspiration process of all of this was you can tailor something so much, you can conceive it so much, but at the end of the day, when you're working with people and when you're working with families, you really need to listen to what their needs are and provide them with those needs rather than dictating or preconceiving. So I found inspiration in all of Jim's caregivers, in all of our friends just being available. But most importantly, we had a tremendous willingness and wantingness to want to establish a new normal in his honor.
What inspiring that one is, and there's nothing as inspiring as being able to make a difference in other people's lives because of what we do. I love that you have shared about your willingness to prevail and establish new normals, and making a difference in other people's lives because of what you do. What a great inspiration that one is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's talk about how you prepared for success that turned this idea or that turned this inspiration into a reality. Can you share our listeners what are some of your personality traits or your top 3 personal qualities that help you become a successful entrepreneur that our listeners can learn from?
Well, I think ingenuity is a tremendous asset if you have ingenuity, you're able to kind of turn everything a little bit on its side and look and see how you can really internalize and skin that cat. Um, you know, I don't know of a service that existed quite like this before. We came along. Of course, there are other advocacy companies and geriatric care managers and so forth, but in terms of the real ingenuity of how we do our research, the questions we ask our clients, it's not face value at all. It's very much scratching the surface. The other thing is work ethic. I mean, if you're not prepared to work harder than you've ever worked on anything, maybe not raising children, maybe that's the only other thing that really competes with stick-to-itiveness and work ethic. But the beginning, the ability to really understand that one task leads into another task leads into another task, and you might just have to keep on going on the roll of that to really get things done. And then the last thing I would offer is that I've been able to maintain the focus of the day-to-day while still dreaming about what the big picture is and implementing the day-to-day to start to accomplish pieces of that big picture. And over these 8 years, we've been able to do that. But you really have to be able to look from the bottom up and from the top down.
Wow. I mean, I love those traits that you shared with us. Ingenuity, especially work ethics. I mean, I know it's one of the traits that we should all cultivate. And the good news is that these traits that Barbara you shared with us, we can all adapt, we can all cultivate and adapt them into our lives. So let's continue doing that and cultivating them and adapting them in our lives for our. It's gonna go a long way in us building not only ourselves but our business as well. All right, let's talk about what happened when you started your journey as entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we face daily challenges that define our being. And to get through those challenges, it takes a very special person. And our audience wants to know that special person in you. So, what have been your biggest challenges building your business? And how have you addressed or overcame those barriers to success that a lot of women entrepreneurs face today?
Well, I think every entrepreneur would have to agree that there are not enough hours in the day. And so setting your priorities is extremely important. If you're lucky enough to be able to find help that has and shares the same work ethic and vision that you do, that certainly does invent 48 hours, because you have two people working on a 24-hour schedule as opposed to just one. So you kind of build in some hours there. For me personally, not living close to the community that I was marketing to has been a challenge, because I just said that there aren't enough hours in the day, and yet I have commuted 2 to 3 hours a day at times. And so that really cuts into your productivity. And so the way that I've combated that is that I am moving closer to my target market, which is kind of a no-brainer when you stop and think about it. And then in starting a niche business, you really have to have the confidence to not let that challenge stop you in the form that you're trying to conceive it. So there's a huge learning curve when you don't have somebody else's trail to follow. You're being your own trailblazer. So you really have to have that confidence to keep on going, to keep that machete up, to keep on cutting through the jungle, and to understand that you might be too early with an idea, but if you've had this idea, other people are looking for it, and maybe they're not going to execute it, but they'll want to buy it once you do.
Wow. Those challenges that you shared with us, I'm sure we can all learn from the lessons that you've just learned. And yes, I know, especially for very niche market, like for example with Barbara, and I'm sure maybe a lot of our listeners have a certain niche also that is so targeted that you have to be in where they are, where your market is.
Right.
Of course, especially if you are a brick and mortar, for example, you have
Yes.
to be around where your market is, and that can be a challenge. But look, there are resources, and Barbara is able to overcome those and not let those challenges deter her from moving forward. So that's how we should be focusing, or that's how we should be dealing with challenges, because there are going to be challenges anyway. Even in life in general, there are going to be challenges. The most important thing is that we're not giving up on our dreams, on the passion that we have because of all these challenges. All right, let's switch gears for a little bit and talk about work-life balance. Being a business owner myself, maintaining a work-life balance is so crucial to overall success in life. Now, the challenge with entrepreneurs is how to click on and click off and create a work-life balance, particularly if you have a family juggling many roles. So in your life as an entrepreneur, how do you maintain this work-life balance, and what are some of the ways that you accomplish this in the areas of your health, your family, your relationships, and your business?
Well, one of my biggest rules is if we're having dinner at home and we're all going to be home, that it's an event. So we always set the table. We use cloth napkins. We use a lot of serving pieces. It's almost like Thanksgiving on a Tuesday in August, or I guess it's September already. But we make it an event so that everybody is present. There are no distractions. There are no phones at the table. There's no television on, and that we really share that time together. And that is a great diffuser of stress and creates balance, just because you feel in touch with the people that you live with. To extend that also is I love to create alone time with each member of my family. So that could be a drive in the car, that could be going to a movie together, that could be shopping for what one of the kids might need, but to really, again, focus on someone other than yourself. I'm a big believer that if other people are happy, then that makes me happy. If the people around me are happy, that makes me happy. And that dovetails into the third thing that I do, which is I do something that makes me happy every day. And that, whatever that something is, may not necessarily be for myself, but in knowing that I'm making somebody else happy makes me happy. So you might, pick up a flower or buy something special for the house that one of your kids likes to eat, or make s'mores in the backyard, or just sit around the fire pit, or whatever seasonally is available to charge your batteries. Maybe it's going to a farmer's market, as we have the luxury of doing this time of the year, and finding beautiful fruits and vegetables. I mean, that makes everybody happy. So, doing something on a daily basis that makes you happy, and even the better if it's for somebody else.
Love those tips that you shared with us, and especially the house rule that you have, making dinner as an event, making it a special occasion. And I totally can see that. I totally can relate to that, because that's how I grew up too. Everyone has to be on the dinner table, and that's someone that we look forward to when we growing up. And it's so important to incorporate that one too in a world where we are now. Everyone's busy and like that. Everyone's instant like that. But if you make something special, something that people will look forward to, your family's going to look forward to. So create that one. So for our listeners out there, apply it try this at home. Make dinner an event, something that your children, your husband, your spouse, your partner will look forward to, and make it so special that wow, everyone's going to look forward to. I love that concept. Creating alone time with each member of the family, that is huge too, especially with your kids. Really important to find time alone with them and do something together. Of course, doing something that makes you happy every day, that recharges you, that's important too, because we have to take care of ourselves too. Really great tips here that Barbara just shared with us, so let's take action on them today. All right, let's talk about success and what success means to you. Your business appears to be financially doing quite well, and with that success flows into other areas in the entrepreneur's life. Now, would like to also say that success is a mindset. I can have $10 in my pocket, but my mind feels like a millionaire. I feel great about myself and I'm moving forward. The opposite way will be a multi-billionaire and be totally miserable. So am I successful? Financially, yes. Individually, probably not. So in your journey as an entrepreneur, what does success mean to you, and what are some of the benchmarks that you use to measure your success?
Well, I think continuing on the trend of doing things for other people, success to me means giving people the best service possible. And so if you are able to find a resource that will make their life easier, and you can replicate that formula day after day, that's our service. That's our product. Our product is helping people navigate the elder care arena and advocating for them within that arena. So success for me would be getting somebody qualified for a long-term care policy, or finding the right chair so that their back doesn't hurt anymore. I mean, those types of minor successes, although finding the right chair for someone might sound minor to us, but when you are housebound and you don't have the right chair to sit in, that's a big thing. But truly success is continuing to have the confidence to do the same thing over and over again equally as well. So just because you've accomplished it, your goals and your tasks on one day does not give you the opportunity to slip or to not do it with the same precision and perfection the next day. So there's a discipline in success. And so as you're talking about that millionaire who doesn't feel fulfilled, or that person with $10 who does feel fulfilled, if you continue to replicate that positive task and act and attain those goals consistently, success is about being consistent. So for me, that's just a very simple straight line. Because once you stop being successful, you're not being consistent anymore. And in terms of benchmarks, we've been attaining consistency now for 8 years. I'm looking to 10 years as my next benchmark. But, everyone says about entrepreneurs, if you're still around in 3 years. Well, I think that 3 years is really 5 years. So I think, and I don't mean to be negative, but just realistic, that I would suggest that the real benchmark is 5 years. Because at 3 years, you're just starting to see that you can be consistent. At 5 years, you can begin to see the fruits of your labor.
Love your perspective on success. Success is about consistency, being consistent, and I agree. I mean, there's not such thing as overnight success. More often, we don't know that the same overnight success have totally years before they are they become successful. So really important to be consistent with what it is that you're doing, and not give up on until you see the results. And yes, I mean, being conservative here, 5 years of course, is not really uncommon. I mean, that's when we start really, it's a test of your consistency, your patience, your tenacity, your willingness to weather all the storms that really matters. All right, now I know you've given us a lot of tips already, but I'd love for us to talk about one of the highlights of our show, and that's your advice for other entrepreneurs and those aspiring to be, especially to those who want to follow your footsteps. You obviously got some lessons learned under your belt of experience, so take it back to the past. Say you're gonna start all over again as an entrepreneur, and you are in a class with other entrepreneurs who are hungry or thirsty for success, or even for making that first buck. What types of special suggestions or advice and lessons that you learned would you give your fellow entrepreneurs, knowing where you came from and where you headed at? And if you can boil them down to your top 3 tips or advice, what would those 3 be?
Well, the first would be, as an umbrella to those 3 tips, if you believe in your product or your service, go for it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't attain what you're planning, because they don't know what's in your head and they don't know how you're going to go about attaining it. But in going for it and in really making that splash, the first thing that I would suggest is that you have your infrastructure in place before you step out your door. And by that I mean, know what your message is, know what your mission is, know what your business model is. If you're going to do a business plan, be working on it then. If you haven't already completed it, understand what your finances look like and what they'll need to be. So really honing that infrastructure. I worked on this for 1.5 years before I even stepped out the door. My website was done, my logo was designed, my brochures were printed, my business cards were printed, and so the day that I decided to take my show on the road, everything was in place. And from my corporate background, I felt that that was very important, because if you start handing business cards out to people and you say, well, my website's going to be up soon and I'll have a brochure for you, I'll get back to you, and you seem tentative, you don't seem professional and polished. So infrastructure equals professionalism and polish. The second thing in preparing within that infrastructure is conducting information interviews. Calling people, many times cold calling people. We mentioned LinkedIn earlier, and going to the true sources of the information that you're looking for in terms of how to support and bolster your mission and your message. And then the last thing I would say is know your competition. Know who already sells to your market. Know how much they charge for it. Know how long it takes to get the product. Know every aspect of what your competition is doing. You'll either do it better or you'll do it differently.
Love your tips that you just shared with us, and we can all take action on today. So let me just summarize them again for our listeners. So the first one is really important. That this has been a theme here at Today's New Women, that if you believe in your product or service, go for it. Don't listen to naysayers out there. It is you who knows what your value are providing to the world, and you know that if this is what you truly believe, this is what and you know that people are waiting for it, go for it. But at the same time, like the second one, which Barbara shared with us, to have that infrastructure in place, really be prepared before you launch the business. And there are a lot of ways to do that, and especially nowadays when we have the internet, we are so interconnected with the internet, doing surveys, putting your idea out there, getting feedback and iterating from there. That is a whole lot easier now than way back 20 years ago because of technology. So leverage technology to be able to know as much as you can about your customer, about your prospective client, and have those infrastructure in place before you put your business out there. The third one, which is really important, is to know your competition. And yes, we can all learn from our competitors, but we can also make them partners. And if you can, like what Barbara just shared with us, if we can make what we're offering a whole lot different and unique and better, or stand out from the competitors that we have, that is huge. So let's take action on these tips that Barbara just shared with us, and I'll make sure to have them on our show notes. Last but not least, Barbara, share with us and our listeners that one woman out there that you admire the most and why.
Well, I'm very simple about this. It's still my mother. And she died very young in her life, but she was an incredibly independent, she was a role model. I mean, she was independent, she was smart, she just happened to be beautiful, but she lived every day understanding that the world was her oyster. She was a very hard worker. She didn't have a fancy career, but she exemplified work-life balance. All of the tips that I've shared with you about home life and family, she taught us, and she gave us the strength and the confidence to not let the world tell us no about anything. It might say maybe, but it doesn't say no. And if it says maybe, then we want to figure out how we can make that maybe a yes. And so, with respect and with forethought and with confidence, she taught us that the world was our oyster.
So to your mom for being such an inspiration to not only you, but to all of us here at Today's Leading Women, we salute her. Lastly, Barbara, share our listeners what's one big benefit that they can get with your product or your service, where they can get it, and what's the best way that our listeners can connect with you, and then we'll end from there.
Oh, thank you. So, the best tip that I can offer you in using A Dignified Life is that we help you plan for the future. No one wants to be caught in a crisis, especially when an elder loved one or a senior is in need of care. That care might not necessarily be health care, it might be legal care, it might be financial care or residential care, but we help you plan to take care of all of those aspects of your life. And so when we say advocate and navigate, we help you identify what your services are, what services are needed. We provide vetted reference resources to address those services and bring that support directly to you. It's personality matched and geographically matched. And we are familial, so we act as if we are a family member, and of course with the utmost respect. But most important in planning is that we try and curtail people being caught off guard in crisis. When you're in crisis mode, you can't think, you can't be thorough, you can't act on someone's best behalf, including your own, and you just are rushing through the process to get things done because you have no time to plan. And so I think that certainly in the silver tsunami of our country and the world right now, that we're only living the tip of the iceberg of what the realities of living in a country by 2030 will have 41% of the population over the age of 65. will be living in the reality of having people with memory impairment who aren't getting the right services. And so we hope that one person by one person will be able to make a difference and help people understand the importance of planning. The best way to get in touch with us is by email, which is bjn@adignifiedlife.com. There's a contact page on our website, www.adignifiedlife.com, or just call me directly. Am I allowed to give out my phone number?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, of course. So the most the quickest way to get me is to call me 914-475-7225. And I thank you so much, Mary Grace, for inviting me on the show, and it's been a spectacular opportunity and a lot of fun to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you too. And yes, for our listeners out there, I highly encourage you to go to the website www.adignifiedlife.com or email Barbara at bjn@adignified.com or pick up the phone 914-475-7225. That's 914-475-7225. I know this is an area that we don't want to wait till think something happens, so we can plan way in advance. And if these products and services that Barbara has and her company has resonate with you, I highly encourage you to stay connected or to get connected to her. You can call them at 914-475-7225 or email bjn@adignifiedlife.com, and I'll make sure to have this all in our resources as well. Barbara, thank you so much for being so generous in sharing your time, your inspiring story, your expertise, for being a role model to many, and for bringing such a positive energy with our listeners today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Women of the world, including me, appreciate you and wish you more success in business and in your life.
Thank you again.
Thinking of starting a podcast? Seriously consider starting a podcast of your own, remembering that it will allow you to grow in ways you never imagined. It will grow your email list, your audience, your influence, and your bank account. Go to podcastprofitsystem.com to get started. That's www.podcastprofitsystem.com.
Feeling inspired and empowered to make it happen? Then take the next step and go get your free guide to the top 10 resources that today's leading women use to stay at the top of their game, plus Marie's favorite today. Visit todaysleadingwomen.com/guide for your free download, and we'll see you on the next episode of Today's Leading Women with Marie Grace Berg.